Hi guys, welcome back. In this lesson we're going to look at Guy Wood's My One and Only Love. So this jazz ballad is written in the key of C major and it follows an AA-BA form. The version that I'm working on can be found on page 310 of the Real Book 1. So here's the front cover of the Real Book 1, and if you head over to the resources section of Piano Groove you can find a link to where you can buy that book online. So here's the A section of the tune, and what you should immediately notice is the descending bass line movement. So this is achieved through the use of slash chords. If you're not familiar with what slash chords are, or if you just want to refresh yourself, I'd go and check out the lesson I've made on them. So the theory covered there will be really useful when you're learning this tune. So slash chords are used to imply a specific bass note must be played. So if we look at the first three bars, you can see that I've highlighted the roots of the chords and also the implied bass note, which is always on the right hand side of the slash. So for now, we're going to ignore the chords on the left hand side of the slash because that's what we play in our right hand over the top of the bass note. So we're just going to work through the first three bars playing the roots of the chords and the implied bass note. So first of all we have a C major 7, so the root would be C. Then we have C over B. Then we have A minor 7. Then we have A minor over G. Then we have D7 over F sharp. Then we have G7 over F. Then we have C over E. And then we have F major 7. So now we're going to add the melody in and we're going to play through the whole of the form, just playing the bass notes and the roots of the chords. Going into the B section. Here's some more chromatic movement. And then we're back to the third A section. So now let's look at the chords. The first time through, I'd miss out the C over B and the A minor over G. So we just play C major 7. We got the root, the 5th, the 7th, and the 3rd. A minor. So when you come around to play the A section the second time, I would definitely add all the chords in. But if we look at the first measure, there's 4 chords in the bar, so that's a chord on each beat. And it's quite a lot of stuff to play. And I think the first time through, if you play a more minimalistic version, it really allows you to state the melody. So now let's look at the slash chords. We have D7 over F sharp. So there's a root position, D7. If we take the root and put it on top, that gives us D7 over F sharp. So we can play the F sharp down here, and then play the D7 in its first inversion. Then the next chord we have G7 over F. So there's a root position G7 chord. If we take the F and put it on the bottom, that gives us a third inversion G7 chord with F in the bass. So that will be G7 over F. And again, we can play the F down here. So let's see how that sounds. Something nice to do here would be to change the chords slightly. So instead of playing D7 in its third inversion, we can play a D6-9. So we've got, that would be D6-9 over F sharp. So we've got the third, the fifth, the sixth, and the 9 of D7. Well, it's actually D6 now, so it's still a dominant chord, but it has a bit of a softer sound than with the dominant seventh in there. And then for the G7 over F, instead of playing a third inversion G7, I'd play a rootless voicing for G13. So we've got the 7th, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 13th. So the great thing about this is if we look at the movement between the two chords, that's D6-9, and then G13, there's only one note that changes. So that's very smooth voice leading, which will sound great. Again, we can put the roots in, or not the roots, sorry, the bass notes. So let's see how that sounds. Then we've got a C over E, so play E in the bass, and that's a first inversion C major triad, so there's the root position. Then we go into F major, so play F, and then there's a left hand voicing for F major. We've got the 9th, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. And then we're going to G7. So that's the root, the 5th, and the 3rd. It adds some nice movements. So now we've got an E minor 7 flat 5, an A7, and a D minor 7. So these three chords create a 2-5-1 in D minor. So if you've watched the minor 2-5-1 lesson, you'll know that we can play, there's E minor 7 flat 5. If we put it into its first inversion, we can then move the top two notes in either directions by a half step, and that takes us to A7 with a flat 9 and a flat 13. So it's rootless, we just have the 7th and the 3rd, which defines the A7 sound, and then we have the flat 9 and the flat 13 to add some extra colour. And then we can drop down to a type A rootless voicing for D minor 7. So remember, we have an E minor 7 flat 5 chord in its first inversion. The top two notes move out by half a step each to get to A7 flat 9 flat 13, and then we play a type A rootless voicing for D minor 7. So that works in all keys. So if you're not familiar with that, I'd go and check out the lesson on the minor 2-5-1 where it's explained in more detail. So let's see how this sounds. So now onto the second line. I have a G7, and then we have an E7 over G sharp. So we've got G sharp in the bass. We have the sharp 9 of E7 in the melody, so that's the natural 9. And that's the sharp 9. And so that, to me, it says it wants an altered chord. So this here is a voicing for E7. It's a sharp 5, sharp 9 voicing. So we have the 3rd and the 7th. So there's the root underneath. We've got the 3rd of E7, the sharp 5, so that's the normal 5th, sharp 5, the 7th and the sharp 9. A very colourful chord. To A minor 7, then to D7, D minor 7, E minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, and then we're back to C. To get from E minor 7 to A7, we just drop the 7th of E minor 7 down a half step. That gets us to A13, so we have the root, the 7th, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 13th. Then we go down to D minor 9, so we've got the root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th. Drop the 7th down a half step again and play G in the bass, and that's a G13, so that's the same voicing that we used in the second bar, and that takes us nicely back to C, to the start again. So I'll just play once through all that for you. So now we're on to the second time we run through the A section. So this time we're going to want to add all the slash chords in there. To do this, I'd recommend moving the melody up an octave, so that'll give you more space to play these slash chords. I'll show you how I'd go about that. So C major. So just let me break down what I did there. We started off with C major 7. And then for C over B, I just played the 3rd and 7th of C with B in the bass. So technically it is a C over B, even though it's just 2 notes. So for A minor 7, I've played, it's kind of an A minor 9 voicing, but without the 7 in there. So that would be the 7. So instead we've just got the root, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 5th. It's kind of like a little cluster voicing, so we've got that cluster of 3 notes, which is a nice sort of alternative to wider voicings. So that's just a rootless voicing for A minor 9, but G is in the bass, so we can play that for A minor over G. Just play this like we did before. So that's nice. That's the sharp 11 of F major. Again, it's like a little cluster voicing. It's a nice touch. So we've got the sharp 11, the 5th, and the 7th. So that was a minor 2-5-1 in D, but this time I used sort of 2-handed voicings. So let me break it down for you. There's the G7. So that's an E minor 7 flat 5, and we have the melody note is G, so you want to keep that the same. We've got the root, the 11th, the 5th, the 7th, and the 3rd. And so that's an A7, flat 9, flat 13. It's the same as what we played last time, but it's spread over 2 hands. We have the root and the 7th, and then we have the flat 9, the 3rd, and the flat 13. And that drops down nicely to a D minor 11. That is a lovely voicing. So that's the root, 3rd, 11th, 5th, 7th and 9th. So let's just run through that again. So I've still played the sharp 5, sharp 9 voicing for E7, but this time I have used the root of the chord in the bass. It gives it a bit more weight. That's an A minor 11 voicing. So we've got the root and the 7th, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 11th. And that goes down to D7. So now we have the second ending to the A section. So you can see we have the little 2 there. So we can play a D minor again. And then we go down to C6. And then we have, that's an F sharp minor 7 flat 5 to a B7. And then we're into the B section. So just let me run through all of that one more time. Now let's take a look at the B section of the tune. So going into the B section, we have a minor 2-5-1 in the key of E. So that's F minor 7 flat 5. We've got the root, the 3, the flat 5, and the 7. So then to play a B7, we can just move the root to B and drop the 7th down a half step. But that's actually a B7 with a flat 9. So the natural 9th would be C sharp. So we have a B7 with a flat 9. And then we go to E minor. So I'd recommend playing this up here. It just gives you more space. So one thing with the E minor is you have a lot of space because you only have an E minor written down there. So you can add more chords in. Something I'd do is, so 2-5 to the 1. So that's an E minor 9. And then just drop the 7th down a half step. So that's an E minor 13 now. And then reach down, play the root again. F minor 7 flat 5 to B7 with a flat 9. And then that figure just repeats. F minor 7 flat 5, B7 flat 9. So then we have another chromatic sort of bass line movement. So that's an E minor 7, E minor 7 over D sharp, E minor 7 over D, and E minor 7 over C sharp. So all the left hand is doing there is dropping down, the bottom note's dropping down by half steps. So it is a bit of a stretch, that last one. So let's run through it all again. So we've got F minor 7, flat 5, B7 flat 9, E minor 9, E minor 13, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, B7 flat 9, E minor 7, E minor 7 over D sharp, E minor 7 over D, E minor 7 over C sharp. So then we have a D minor chord with the root in the melody. You could use fourths for this, so we basically stacked 2 fourths. So we've got the root, the 11th and the 7th, and then we can stack another set of fourths off the 9th. So E's the 9th. So that's a nice fourth voicing. So that's a voicing for A7. The melody is F natural, so that's the flat 13 of A7. All I've done here is basically doubled the flat 13, and then we've got the root, and we've repeated the third. So let's run through that again. And then back to the fourth voicing. It'd be nice to use a tritone substitute here. So instead of G7, we can play D flat 7, and that takes us down back to the third A section. So I'll just run through that again without talking so you can hear what it sounds like. If we go from the C6 chord, and then we're back to the last A section. So on the last A section, something else you can do is just have a sort of falling bass line quite low down. So start on C major 7, C over B, A minor 7, could even, so that's, we've got the G in the bass, and we've got the 3rd, 5th and 9th of A minor. So that's D7 over F sharp. We're playing the same notes we did the first time through, but just playing a two-handed voicing. So instead of going, we're playing it all in two hands. We can also do the same with the G7 chord. So that's a G13. We've got the 7th, which is F, so that's the bass note. We've got the 11th low down there, 7th again, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 13th. Could even put the root in there. It's quite a thick chord, so. Then we finish off with a G7 with a flat 9. And there's a C6-9 chord. So you can see you have the D minor 7 and the G7 in brackets. That's basically just a turnaround, so it takes you back to the top. And then you can repeat the tune again. So I hope you found that lesson useful. If you do have any questions with anything that I've covered there, feel free to drop a question in the comment box below.